Welcome to the Old Mac Gang Podcast, or OMG. It's the show where longtime Mac and Apple users come together to share practical tips, everyday workflows, and honest takes on Apple technology. I'm Marty Gensius, and tonight we're going to be looking at one of the quietly important iOS 26 updates. That's call waiting and call screening. These features are all about controlling your interruptions and controlling your device and who gets to it. Cutting down on spam or robocalls while making sure your calls are that you actually want get through and don't slip through the cracks. So let's see who's with us tonight on the panel. We'll start.
Hi, I'm Charlie Lindahl, 70-year-old in Houston, Texas. Been a Mac fan forever, 1984. And I have a MacBook Pro M1. I have an Apple Watch Series 10. I've got AirPod 3s, which I absolutely love. And I don't know that I'm going to be buying any more Apple hardware except maybe the new Mini M5 when it comes out. But I'm really glad to be with the group and the gang, and let's pass it on to the next person.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm a 78-year-old retiree in Tucson, Arizona, member of the Tucson Mac User Group, of which our colleague Bob, who's not here tonight, is the president. And I came up through the user group channel and worked and enjoyed learning with the Apple user groups for about 9 years. And then I was very lucky to get a job at Apple and then spent about 9 years there and did some university IT to kind of close up my career. And now I'm here playing with all of my Apple toys. I've got an M1 and a iPhone 16 Pro Max, and what else have I got? Series 11 watch and 9th generation iPad. Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a 73-year-old Apple enthusiast from Bay Village, Ohio, a former foundryman, an educator, and currently a retiree. I enjoy chatting about all this gear and gizmos and the gizmos I have and the ones I wish I had. I love chatting with this old gang and especially with our audience. Marty.
Great. We are going to talk about this iPhone screening function that's now part of iOS 26. We have some support sites that we will have the links in the show notes for folks who want to go to the support information for things like how to set up silencing your unknown numbers and also setting up this system that allows you to do call waiting. And so when a call comes in, it gets screened and then it'll wait until you are able to, the person will identify themselves, and then you'll get a message on that, and you can decide whether you're going to pick it up or not. So we have a couple of good links, two of them from the Apple support site, and then one that covers all of the details that are associated with iOS 26 features, like the call screening, the live translation, and the AutoMix. And what it is, it's a site that has links to all of the different functions that you can do. So they're user guides and support documents for iOS 26. So we'll have those as part of the show notes, both in the video and also the podcast version of the show. And just basically setting up iOS 26 and setting up this call waiting function with it. Do you have any experience doing this? Who in the group has done it? Yeah. Okay. Simply, from what I can tell, you open up the settings on your device, then you tap apps, and you go to the phone app, at which point you can open up the phone app and it will give you options for call waiting and various other options that you can do with the phone that's specific to this iOS 26. And call waiting kind of depends on your carrier in some cases, but obviously it's a really good functional piece to do. So look in the show notes. We'll have some more links to that besides the one that I showed you, and maybe some YouTube videos that you can look at to watch on how to set this up. If you want to set up call screening or spam handling, you open up settings, you tap on the apps, you tap on iPhone, and then you review the options for unknown callers and spam filtering, and enable the options that kind of mention that match your comfort level. From I only want to, everything is spam except people that are on my friends list, to other options to kind of open it up if you want. If you're expecting calls from doctors, this is where I have problems with the setup. My doctor doesn't necessarily identify or show up in caller ID when it comes up, and I will let that roll through spam. Frankly, my ringer's off all the time, so half the time I don't know I'm getting a phone call. But if it was my doctor, and it was identified as my doctor, I would pick it up right away and deal with whatever I have to deal with. But often I'm in a position that I have to call back on these things. So you want to check your voicemail regularly. And if there is a particular number that is your doctor's office, you can put that general number in as a kind of safe, put it in your contacts list, and it will come up as it needs to come up. Yeah, Charlie.
I seem to remember that there's some way, and it's pretty convoluted, but I think I recall that you can designate that if certain numbers call you, it does turn the ringer on. Have you seen that or done that?
I don't know if any of the rest of the group knows about that or has seen it. No? Okay. Well,
I'll try and track that down. I remember seeing that. It may be an Android thing or something, or some other screwy phone thing, but I'll go check for that. That's really relevant to what you were just saying.
okay. Well, first question actually goes to you, though, Charlie. How do you balance call screening with the risk of missing important calls?
Well, basically, if a caller isn't in my contacts list, I'm okay with using the call screening. Although, because if somebody calls and they don't give a name and a reason that I can see, then I'm going to assume it's spam for the most part. That said, if I know I have a medical operation coming up or something like that, then I'll turn off all the call screening. And the last thing is, and I mentioned this in the next question, is I've been starting to play with the do not disturb stuff. So you can set it so there's a new option. I think it's a new one for Zoom. It basically says if you're doing a Zoom call, turn it off so you don't get interrupted. And it specifically talks about a Zoom call or a VoIP call. So that's separate from this call screening thing, but it's still useful. So that helps with the balance too.
Yeah. Chris.
Yeah, what Charlie is mentioning is called focus. And this is something, I use sleep every night when and it automatically comes up and then it turns off in the morning. And that basically shuts everything off except people you want to let in for emergencies like your family or whatever. Then there are other ones that are a little tricky. And I say a little tricky because on the face of them, sometimes they can be a little bit more, they look pretty clear, but it's possible they may not turn out the way you kind of intended. But there are things like do not disturb, which, and you can adjust again if you want to let emergency people through, let no one through, all your various behaviors. The only thing I will say is, I not only have played with them a bunch myself, but I have a friend who has, and he set up different settings for like when he was at church and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think there was a bug in there, and it got a little bit confusing. And I know what I ended up having to do last year was just turn all the focuses off, and then let them all reset. But at any rate, so under I have Verizon, so I don't have call waiting in in my menu, but I have screen unknown callers, and I always use ask reason for calling. Now, last year, for people who were keeping score, there was something called visual voicemail in the previous OS, where it basically did the same thing. It rang and it just waited to go to voicemail, and then if you saw it was Dr. Ho or something, then you pick the thing up right away and you're good. The one time I've had a problem with this was last week. I've been running it since it came out in September, and I had a case with Apple Tier 2 support, and they told me turn off the call screening because we can't get through it. So apparently the outbound Apple phone tree will hang up or something. I'm not sure what the deal is. But yeah, I mean, that's what I use. And the one thing I've been noticing, and this is a little interesting, is the number of spam calls I have coming in is going down. And so I'm not sure if people are wising up to this in the telemarketing world or not. But I find it just indispensable. And we'll talk more.
Yeah.
There are more to talk about with this. Charlie?
Peter.
Yeah, no balancing for me. I screen all unknown callers, anybody who's not in my address book, and I don't worry at all about missing important calls. I have not had any important calls not get through to date. My doctor and dentist and other similarly important people seem to respond to whatever the challenge is and get through to me. And it has been my sense with that little experience that important callers are more than willing to leave detailed messages even when they don't get through to me, even when I can't even answer. I like that for the last few years the phone now lets me read rather than listen to messages that are left for me, voicemail messages. Although I continue to get annoyed that reading doesn't dismiss the notification count badge. So after I've read them, I end up sometime like hitting the play button, whether I listen or not is irrelevant to dismiss that badge.
Yeah, I have the same thing with that, and it is a little bit frustrating. It's like you're going to make me listen to this anyways, just so I can wipe out the count badge. So it feels like it's defeating the purpose. I don't manage this function very well with my phone. And there's a couple of reasons. I have one phone that is my phone that I take with me. I also have one that sort of is a main phone, but I will relay calls from that phone to the one that I take with me. So it call forwards, and that kind of screws up the whole process in a lot of ways. So basically, it's an on-off thing for me. If I don't want to be disturbed by the chance that I see something come in, or if it comes in later and I see the pop-up of the notification of the message they've left, that gives me information. I can call people back. If I know I've called my doctor in the morning, we need to reschedule for another day, and they will quote call me back, then everything gets opened up. And I wind up taking phone calls. Although, his number's in there, I just want to keep it open. And his name will pop up when the phone rings. The problem is I have my phone silenced so much for a greater portion of the day that it just automatically goes to voicemail anyway. So I don't manage this screening very well. And I also think people don't manage it very well in terms of making calls to me. I have a medical supplier who provides me stuff for my CPAP, and they send me so much stuff, and I don't change it out and I don't need to change it out as much as they send it to me. But I get at least one phone call a day from the medical supplier trying to connect with me to give them more orders for my CPAP. I've got drawers full of stuff that I haven't used yet. Let me call you back when I need it. I know where to find you. Just don't hound me every day. And they, not responding to them, they don't take a hint. So it seems like they're kind of wanting to sell as much medical supplies to me that will go unused. Charlie.
I ran into a service that could help you with this. Basically, what it does is, and now that we've got AI, I imagine these things exist and they're pretty good. But this thing, and this was a couple of years ago, if you got an annoying call, you could forward it to a service, and what the service did is it would have a machine on the other end, and it would say things like, "I can't hear you, I can't hear you," and it would tie up the caller for like 20 minutes with all kinds of crap. But you've already forwarded it over there, so you don't even hear all this shit. Okay. Oh, pardon my French. Anyway, you don't hear all this stuff, but it lets you forward off to somebody and just completely drive the caller nuts. And I imagine there are versions of that now. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just pay a teenager is one way to handle it. They need to earn income somehow. And anyway, question number 2 goes to you, Charlie, again. If you were setting this up for a parent or a friend, which feature would you turn on or off?
I would turn on call screening and not necessarily hold assist without talking to them first. And I would make sure that the hospitals and doctor and insurance stuff is plugged in before I put on the call screening.
Okay. Chris.
Of course, we should mention too, if it's in your contacts, it just rings, right? Just goes through like a regular call. Yeah, I mean, I actually have an elderly friend out in Monterey, California, and he just doesn't want it on. And he just likes the phone to ring, and he has a kind of elaborate bells and whistles thing every time his phone rings. So I guess that's he has fun with that. And some people are just not going to be confident and say, I want to make sure I get the important calls, and they're willing to deal with the other ones. So who knows? Maybe they'll subside on their own now that with Apple Call screening. But there are some folks, it's not for them. It's okay.
So does your friend just accept spam calls, or does he have any notification?
Apparently,
yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
he does,
well.
And he usually tells them. I think he enjoys telling them to where to go and hang it up. And
yeah, well, that doesn't necessarily work
like
to decrease them, but yeah.
By the way, the hardest process of setting this up, I meant to say this earlier, is, the Apple apps used to be on level 1 of the settings, so that you didn't have to go to apps and then find the phone alphabetically under P, because it was an Apple app and it was in the same level as apps. And so Apple has decided to be more democratic and put their apps in with everybody else's apps.
Yeah.
The problem gets to be, I mean, it's a nice gesture for developers, I get that, but the problem can be that if you're going back and forth to something like phone, it's one extra step and you've got to scroll all the way down, or you got to be good at hitting the letter P, and it not only adds a step, it feels like adding 3 or 4 steps because of the length of time it takes to do that. And that, I don't know, it's a little annoying, but what can you do?
Yeah.
So, but just to be forewarned, when you're originally setting it up, you might go, well, where's phone? It's under apps now, and so are all the other Apple apps.
Yeah. It's a sub-menu of the apps, but you have to go through settings to get to it, go down to apps, and then find it there. Yeah. It's confused me more than once in terms of trying to find apps and where they are, and primarily the ones that are the level 1 apps, like you said, not finding them. And mail is another one, not finding them in what you think would be in a top level. Peter, you're up.
Yeah, I don't generally turn on or off settings from the default for anybody. What I do is show them how to get to the phone settings, describing it to them and having them navigate there themselves. And then I might walk them through or describe to them the meaning of some of the major choices and allow them to choose for themselves in the hope that they can get back there and change it if they end up not liking it. In this case, I'd probably talk a little at the same time as call screening about ring volume, silent mode, all that kind of stuff. While checking the phone settings this afternoon and noticing how laborious it is to get there, like Chris said, I noticed one I didn't recall, which is called Respond with Text, which seems great to me. Apparently, when a call comes in, you can just, instead of answering it, send that person a text, and you can pre-populate 3 texts. They suggest, can't talk now, can I call you later, I'm on my way. And I did variations of those, and I'm looking forward to, sometime when I'm, have my phone sort of handy, but somebody calls and I've got it silenced, but I want to, just quick get back to them, and I don't want to sit there and type. But one of those 3 texts is kind of appropriate for most of those situations, and I can fire it right off to them. So I thought that was kind of nice and worth mentioning.
Yeah, Chris, did
That's
you
actually
have
been
some?
around. Yeah, that's actually been around for a couple of OSs, I think. The problem, unfortunately, is on the other end. Whoever is calling you, your caller, it doesn't kick his screen over to messages such that he sees your message. He or she will probably see it later, but they don't necessarily see it right away. At least it certainly seems that way, because maybe it's my friends, I don't know, but they always seem to say, "Oh, I didn't see that right away," or so to them it's just going to voicemail, and that's an area that could stand a little improvement, I think, from Apple.
Yeah, I think following what Peter says, the idea of setting up someone's phone, particularly if they're not skilled at being able to change the functions on it. I thought maybe writing down the steps, and that would give them an opportunity to change it or reverse it without you having to be there, as long as they know system settings, app, phone, and then the setting to switch things on or switch things off. And that might be a simple document that you could put together for them and then give them the choice. Maybe set it up and say, this is what you've got now. See how you like it. If you don't like it, this is how you get back to fix it, back the way you wanted it to be. So maybe something like that would be my suggestion with it. Third question goes, does call waiting plus screening reduce stress or just change how interruptions show up? Charlie, you have some comments on that?
I would say yes, absolutely. Um, Particularly on the hold music stuff. And about 6 months ago, I was doing technical calls and stuff for website and so forth and so on. And a particular uh, ISP is notorious for this. I won't mention the name, but anyway, um, and I was on hold for like 35 minutes. With the music, and it's the same darn music. Okay, and I was just getting sick of it. Um, So I called them again recently, and I had the whole waiter thing on, and it was great because it automatically detected there was music going on, and it said, "Do you want to use the whole assist stuff?" And I said yes. And sure
Mm-hmm.
enough, 20 minutes later, a little notice shows up on my phone and said, "Okay, they're ready. Do you want to call? Do you want to accept a call?" And I said, "Yep, you bet." And it worked fine. So I've only done it a couple of times, but it's worked for me every time. And yes, it does reduce stress.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, and we mentioned this earlier, using the focus and do not disturb stuff. Um, I did find, and I put in the text stream, that there is a way to adjust volume based on caller on iPhone, and I thought I'd remembered seeing it before, but apparently it's on right now, or the capability exists. So again, going back to the early case where earlier case where you have your doctor calling, you can have it actually ring. You can turn your ring volume down, and when that doctor calls or that person calls, you can actually crank the ring volume up and be able to hear it. So between these two features and that do not call thing or do not disturb thing or focus, whatever it is, this is pretty powerful stuff. Although the focus stuff is really complicated to set up. Anyway,
Yeah, I understand that too. First of all, with the focus thing, it's sort of like, is your day going to be regulated that same way every day? There's some nights I'm not going to bed at 11 o'clock. I'm going to bed at 1 o'clock. This is probably going to be one of those nights because I've got stuff to do I need to get done before I go to bed. So the consistency that for me focus requires never really works out for my life. Now, today I gave a talk at the Naples Mac user group. And, here in my office, my home office, and the last thing I wanted was things to pop up on my screen to disturb me. So I just went ahead and do it. For me, it's an on or off thing. It's like I'm going to be in do not disturb. I sometimes don't trust that it'll be until the next event because that's one of the options in do not disturb. So I'll just turn on do not disturb. Sometimes I forget that I turned it on and have to go back and turn it off because I can't do things or I'm not getting phone calls. But yeah, it's an on or off thing for me, but it's not something I can set up as a full lifestyle because my life changes in a lot of ways with that. Chris, comments?
Yeah, what Charlie was describing, by the way, is officially called Hold Assist, and it's a terrific feature. Early on, it would be triggered by robo talking. We talked about this before, and that's when your hold music, a voice breaks in and says, "Gee, we appreciate you being such an excellent customer. We'll have somebody with you right away in 48 hours and 23 minutes," or whatever it happens to be. And that would trigger it and would go off. But Apple fixed that. Many kudos on that. So now the RoboTalk doesn't like set it off, and it can be tremendously helpful. I just like Charlie. I've got a thing about hold music. I think I've been forced to listen to too much of it in this incarnation.
And you know
But
what? What's even weirder is when the music it gets distorted, and I don't know if if it's the signal or the tape or whatever, but it's like cranky, creaky, horrible sounding. It's not. I mean, the music is bad enough when it's good, but when it's distorted like that, it's like, why just leave silence. I can sit in silence for a while. That would be nice. So yeah,
it's it's because the tape is getting stretched in the tape recorder.
that's how I imagine it.
But I do think it is a stress reliever, and as long as you don't miss calls, which is pretty well. I mean, I remember I started doing this visual voicemail thing when the betas of it would have been probably about a year ago, July, or maybe it was even 2 years ago now. And a couple of times I missed the doctor's office call, and when I called back, I said, "Gee, I'm really sorry, but if so and so used a phone that didn't say Tucson Medical Center, so I didn't know it was you guys." They said, "Yeah, we're into that. Everybody's doing that now. We're really sorry. We're trying to get all our employees not to use their personal cell phones and so on and so on." So people were into that already 2 years ago. So it's getting a lot better. Um, and I just said, "Hey, at my age, there's so many spam calls and phishing calls. I don't pick up if I don't know who it is."
Yeah,
And they said, "Yep, everybody's doing that here in Tucson." So
yeah.
admitted it's pretty well widespread. But these are great features, and Apple's improved it yet again with iOS 26. And like we said last week, to me, that's a killer feature. That's a reason to update right there. And I'm not really worried about the liquid glass like we talked about then. You can turn all that stuff off, so don't worry about that. But
So
anyway,
Peter,
just
what's your take on this? Does call waiting plus screening reduce stress for you or not?
Well, I might be odd man out. With regard to call waiting, it changes how interruptions show up. They don't show up. I mean, the calls I get, I'm interested in answering. But I'm the odd man out, I think, with regard to music on hold. I've never had a problem ignoring it. I'm usually set up for task switching when I make those kinds of calls. I'm at my computer doing
Yeah.
routine organizing and maintenance, so it's not addressing an issue that I found problematic. But I'm delighted for the people helped by it that they can flip the switch. I'm glad it's there.
Yeah. I again, I can let the phone sit there and I can have it in the, but it's when it's bad fidelity of the music. That's when I can't ignore it. It's something about the sound quality of it. Um, I don't know if this reduces stress. I think what it reduces stress is effectively as me just turning my phone off. And I think that's the end result of this. I'm not picking up a lot of phone calls. Definitely, I'll look down and see there's a spam call. It's like, okay, bye. But sometimes, like I said, I'm not paying attention to my phone. It rings. It's on silent. It might not be somebody that's on my list, and it doesn't ring through, and I miss a phone call. And life goes on. I see it later on and find out. Yeah, I'll give that person a call back, and I give that person a call back. I think part of it is what Chris has said. People have gotten used to not getting phone calls picked up when they do it, when they make phone calls, because so many people are filtering their calls in a way that the best you can do is leave a message and hope that they get back to them. Now, that doesn't seem to affect my CPAP supplier. They just keep wanting to call me all the time. And, there have been times where I've run out of stuff, medical equipment, and it's sort of like I pick up the phone or I'm running low, and it's like, okay, they'll have it to me in a week. Fine, good. Okay, well, you're getting just as much business from me this way as you would be getting if you were nagging me about it. Even though they tell me your insurance will cover it all, it's all eligible. That's fine. I don't need that extra stuff. Chris?
Yeah, I'll let you in on a little secret, Marty. It's called CPAP Exchange, EXCHANGE. And you can order or just straight on Amazon. I ran out of my nasal pillows and I
Right.
needed a new one. And Amazon said, we'll send it this afternoon. And I had it the same day. And it was okay. It was 25 bucks. So, but it was no hassle. I didn't have to go through my supplier, whose first initial is A, but I won't mention them by name.
Yeah, my supplier is the person who hooked me up with the current machine that I have. And there have been times where I've gone to Amazon just to get like filters and things like that. It's just,
Sure.
I just get it that way. But enough about that. Any final comments on this system of call screening and call waiting? Okay. Well, I really got to thank Charlie and Chris and Peter for being here tonight. We're not going to have a show next week because I will be traveling and just too much going on for me to get to a hotel and try and figure out how to cut a show from a different time zone and get that process going. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with an episode. But thanks to this crew, Bob couldn't be with us tonight, and he already said he wasn't going to be able to be here next week, but joke's on him. We're not going to be here next week too. So we'll return in a couple of weeks with a fresh show. Thanks. That wraps up this episode of the Old Mac Gang podcast. Subscribe, share, join in the next time if you want to with our live stream for more practical Apple talk. You can find us at youtube.com/@Old Mac Gang Monday night or Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. You can also email us at the podtalknetwork@gmail.com if you have some ideas or some questions or maybe some suggestions for us for shows that we could be doing. And you can find everything about this show and other shows that we do on thepodtalk.net. That's our website, thepodtalk.net. Started a new one, and I hope that you guys will find time to join it. It's called 15-Minute Bites. It is a 15-minute show in length where everybody gets to introduce themselves in terms of in terms of, what their tech background is. And then it's followed by a recipe that you like or that you cook, and we'll have that as a kind of recipe for other people who listens to it. All in 15 minutes. The recipe, of course, is part of the show notes. Charlie.
Real quick on that, I already responded back to you, and I can do some air fryer recipes, and I'd like to participate.
Some recipes for that. And I've got some folks from other shows that I'm on that have already signed up to do some things. We've got a key lime pie coming. We've got a roast coming from Guy Cyril. We've got also, I think, bison stew is what I think Jeff Gammett said he was going to bring to the show. So we have some fun stuff coming up on that. Look for that. That's 15-minute bites. The link is at thepodtalk.net. And that, again, is our website for all of that. Thanks to Charlie and Chris and Peter for joining us tonight. And thanks to you for listening to the Old Mac Gang.